In this quick demonstration, I'm going to go over and possibly demystify how to save JPEG images for web sharing. And we're going to go over just a few things here. We're going to check the image size that we're working with. Then we'll check the color mode, make sure that it's RGB and not CMYK. Then we'll file, save for web and devices, and we'll go through some of the basic stock settings that come with Adobe Photoshop. So let's get started. Let's say that I have created this wonderful, fabulous image, and I've been playing with layers, and I've added a layer style. All of these things I've put together with this rather bizarre but interesting photograph of the double rainbow. The first thing that I want to do before I save any image for the web that I intend to share with others, either via email or social networking sites as a post or within my blog, I want to make sure that the image is the right size. So the first thing you need to check is image size. When I bring up image size, I find that this image is 640 by 424 and at a screen resolution of 72 dpi. Why is this important? Screen resolution is what we commonly associate with web delivery. It's the common size that you see for all JPEG images across the web, and it is the resolution that is used for sharing images on the web. Now, sometimes your images will be set to 300 dpi. This is an example of a resolution that's appropriate for print, but not for web sharing. So if I want to change the resolution for sharing across the web, I make sure to highlight the number, change it to 72 dpi. Also notice how that changes my pixel dimensions. I want to be sure that my pixel dimensions don't get any smaller than fitting within a 320 by 240 size. 320 by 240 is a rather small size, and it's appropriate for sending across the web in various formats and various devices and social networking sites, but you really don't want to get any smaller than that. Watch what happens if I make this smaller than 320 by 240. Let's say I set this image size to 200 and hit OK. And now if I view at 100%, you can see that this image is really quite small and not exactly what I want to do. So I'm going to undo this and return to my actual image size. And I've determined that my image size is okay. The next thing that I want to determine is what image mode we're using. You can actually look here on this info bar related to the image in the image window, and you can see that it is telling us we are viewing this image at 100% and it's in RGB mode. If you noticed that the image is in CMYK mode, which is generally used for print, you'd go under Image, Mode, and change it from CMYK to RGB color. RGB color space is appropriate for saving images as JPEGs. Now, JPEG stands for Joint Photographic Experts Group, and it was a group that really created this lossy compression. A lossy compression means that, yes, there will be some aspects about the image that are lost when you export this image for web delivery. How do we export an image for web delivery? In Photoshop, you can go File, Save for Web and Devices. And this will bring up a dialog box. And once you see the dialog box, not all of it is necessarily fitting in this image window that you are viewing right now. So I'm going to move things over just a little bit so you can see some of the menus that I'm working with here. So on the left-hand side, there'll be an image window. You can see that I can zoom in and out of the image, and I can use the hand to move the image around if I want to see specific areas, if I wanted to see how pixelated this image is going to be. I can zoom in a little bit, and then I can use the grabber hand to move things around in the image window. we're going to work with some basic presets that are allowed, that come stock with Adobe Photoshop. So because we're going to save this as a JPEG image, JPEG is optimal for bitmap images or anything where there's intense amount of gradients. Photographs, portraits, landscapes, pictures of animals, anything that is a photograph, you would want to use the JPEG compression for sharing on the web. As opposed to PNG or GIF, JPEG is more appropriate for this type of image. I want you to make sure that we're going to optimize this image. And these are some of the optimization settings that we have available. Now notice if I choose an optimization setting of low, and if I zoom in, you can see that the image has become very pixelated. You can see that there's, all we really see are a lot of the pixels and squares that make up this image. So that's not usually the best choice for an image that you want to share with somebody, or an image of this size. So let's suggest either using high optimization settings or very high optimization settings. This is going to give you the best results. Also notice how as I change the compression quality, you can see that updates here on the right hand side. You can custom set the quality in this slider, but initially you'll just be experimenting with some of these stock optimization settings. For now, don't worry about setting the blur or the matte background color. We don't necessarily need to embed a color profile in this case, but I do suggest checking Convert to sRGB. I have noticed that some of the highs and lows are thrown out with the lossy compression of JPEG, and you might notice that some of the colors aren't as rich as they once were once you compress the image. But I noticed that the color depth is a little bit better if Convert to sRGB is checked. We're going to have this preview Internet Standard RGB over here for the preview. And we're not going to change our image size in any way. We've already done that previously. And at the bottom of this dialog box, which you probably cannot see, I'm going to hit the Save button. Once I hit the Save button, it brings up this Save Optimize As dialog box, and I can choose whichever folder I would like to save this in. Maybe I put it in my Pictures folder, or maybe I want to see it for later or show it to someone quickly. I can save it to my desktop. So it does allow you to browse and select the appropriate folder for your image and give it a name. I'm going to keep it with this same name and save it to my desktop just now for demonstration and hit Save. And now to take a look at the JPEG image that I have saved, I can go under File, Open, search my desktop, and there it is. I can open it up and review it if I would like. And what you'll notice that's kind of interesting is if we toggle back and forth through the original and the newly made JPEG, there's not much difference. So when we went under File, Save for Web and Devices, even though this is a lossy compression, we didn't lose a lot with the settings set to very high. Also note that it tells you what size the image is going to be once it's exported. And when we export this image at 640 by 424, it's going to end up being 122.2 kilobits. That's pretty small. It even lets us kind of mimic what the download time might be for an end user. Most end users have higher or faster connections than they once did, but you can see what the download time would be for maybe a cable modem versus depending on what your upload and download speeds. You can see that it's not going to take very long for this image to upload or be downloaded by your friend or family member with whom you're sharing this JPEG image. And if you want to get out of this dialog box, you can also click Cancel, which is the bottom right of this dialog box. and return to your original image. So again, to review, when you're exporting a JPEG, you want to go check your image size under Image, Image Size. Make sure that it's not any larger than maybe 1024 by 768, but also that it's not smaller than 320 by 240. You want it somewhere in that range for sharing on the web. Be sure to check that your resolution is 72 pixels per inch for screen resolution as opposed to higher for print, and hit OK. And also double check your image mode. You can see here at the top bar of the image window that it's set to RGB. That is the ideal, that's what you're looking for. If it's set to CMYK or something else, make sure you go into Image, Mode, and choose RGB color. Then you can File, Save for Web and Devices, and use some of these stock export settings initially as you're experimenting with saving the JPEG image. And this concludes how to save and share JPEG images over the web.